Hello, I'm Emmeline,
And I'm Kindy.
and welcome to Stuff with Moms, a podcast about shows, stories, and enjoying life. I got it that time.
Yeah. How was your week?
It was great. It's just been like really lovely weather here. It's been raining, but it's like warm, and it's just so nice to just sit out on the back porch and enjoy the weather and play in the yard. And it's so funny because where we used to live in Wyoming, this weekend got like at least 8 inches of snow. So it's just so different.
Yeah.
I love it so much. I like go out and play in the rain, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And then tonight we we watched the Christmas devotional for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it was beautiful and lovely, and we enjoyed that as a family. We also played board games tonight. We played one of Clark's favorites, Shadows over Camelot. It's where you're all members of King Arthur's Round Table, and you all have like a special ability that you can do. My guy had the ability to play a special white card. There's cards that have special abilities, and I can play one for free every turn. Anyway, you go around and you complete these quests, and if you complete a quest and win, you earn a white sword. And then if you lose, you earn a black sword. And there's only so many slots on the table for swords, and you have to get more white swords than black swords to beat the game. And so all of us are trying to get all these white swords on the round table to beat the game. The game is like the bad guy, unless you play with the traitor, which we've only done a couple of times. So the boys love it, and we had a good time. That was one of the games we played tonight. And then we played some others, but that's enough about games. So how was your week?
Awesome. I want to know what has created this love of games in your family.
My parents had a few board games that we played. My mom really liked this game called Racco, where you have to like get numbers in order. You draw them and kind of pull out one that doesn't work and stick in one that does. It's like a sequential game. My dad, he would always play this game called King's Court with me. It's like checkers, but it's different because you got to conquer the middle part of the board. Man, and when I would beat him on that, I felt like a master game player. I'm like, I beat my dad. I'm awesome.
I'm the boss.
Yeah, that was a fun game. I'm trying to think. We didn't play tons and tons of games, but when we did, I think it was just so fun to me that I'm like, so I would try out more and more games as I got older, and I was like, these are fun. And so I guess it kind of it blossomed from when I was a kid. Not that we had tons and tons of games, but it was so fun that when we did play as a family, that I wanted that for myself and my kids.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm just curious.
So how was your week?
It was good. It was pretty uneventful, which is good. And one of Emmeline the Younger's physical therapist came, and she was teaching me how to help Emmeline the Younger, but not. She's basically less is more. So I'm helping her, but not to the point where she can rely more on herself and gain more balance and strength in her body so that she can walk on her own. She's actually taking more and more steps on her own, which is great.
That is great.
Well, yeah. Yeah, so that was fun. And I put lights. I've got this, Matt's father purchased this artwork that is it's kind of 3D in the sense that it's wood layered upon each other to create a look of two houses, an outhouse or shed type thing, and there's actually like tree branches in it. So it's very heavy and very wide. So this year I decided to wrap
Fairy
Christmas lights around the frame.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. The lights are so bright though. So anytime I go to bed, I have to turn off the Christmas tree because I've got it hooked up to that. And there's like 3 lights hooked up to the Christmas tree. So I really hope I'm not causing a fire, because you know how the lights themselves have like the plug and then the open behind the plug. I've got like 3 things connected in like a train, in like a chain train type thing. I hope so.
That's allowed. That's why they're built like that.
Right?
Yeah.
I hope so, because
anyway, it looks. I love that piece of art that Matt's dad bought, because that Matt inherited. Really cool. It's so pretty. It's like this field, and it's kind of like a foreground and a background and an even farther background. Anyway, it looks really cool. Maybe you should take a picture of it and send it to me, and I can put it in the show notes or on the Facebook page. So that people can works. See.
The tricky part is cleaning it. I can't vacuum it because I'm afraid I'd vacuum up some of the
twigs.
And I can't dust it because then the duster things would get on it.
You got to get like compressed air, but not like high pressure compressed air, like more of a little one.
Yeah. I'll have to try that, because there's some spots that are getting accumulated. It in the picture itself, it kind of looks like more like it's snowing, so it's not that bad. But the frame is kind of where it gets tricky. So anyway, I got to figure that out. So yeah, I've got the obscure holiday.
Yes.
And I picked tomorrow, Saturday, December 9th, is Christmas card day. So Christmas comes up pretty dang quick. So if you can get your cards out, that's one less thing to worry about. If you do that sort of thing. I think this year we're passing just because circumstances are what they are. And so next year I might send out Christmas cards on December 9th. Where you can send out cards and like a little update of what your family's doing.
I almost feel like there's some people that are phasing out of that, Christmas cards, and going more toward a digital, here's a picture of our family and this is what we've been up to this year kind of thing. And it's way cheaper that way.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. It's so much cheaper. Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll just compile a list and get people's email addresses and send them a picture of our family with updates on what this past year has been like for us. But yeah, you're right. I was actually surprised at how many I got. There was one year I got like 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised, but the first Christmas card was sent out in 1843 and it was commissioned in London, the United Kingdom, by Sir Henry Cole. John Colcott Horsley illustrated the card, which featured the members of a family. So I guess the first Christmas card was somebody had to actually paint the family.
Oh, wow.
Because they didn't have 1843. I don't know when they started taking pictures of things or drawing Christmas cards, but it looks like that's when the first one was sent out. So 1843.
That's
How crazy
cool.
would that be? You're like, hey kids, let's sit for our picture.
Hold still for a few hours.
Right? Yeah. All right, you have our word of the week.
I do. Okay, are you ready? This is a noun, and it is gastronome.
Gastronome.
So
It
what do you
sounds
think?
something to do with gas and astronomy. I'm gonna say it's a certain feature that stars have. Like that star is gastronome. Gastronomy? How do you say it?
Gastronome.
Gastronome. The Big Dipper is looking a little gastrom today. Yeah. Gaseously starstruck. That's what I'm going with.
Okay. So a gastronome is a connoisseur of good food. It's somebody that really
Hence the
likes good
gas.
food. A gastronome.
Because you probably fart. That's the end result of good food.
My sisters all love good bakery items, and so they're all bakery gastronomes.
There you go.
You have our good news this week.
I do. So this happened in England. A worker, there apparently was a fire on a skyscraper. And so there was a crane worker that was working on something else, I guess. It was a construction crane. Managed to save a man that was trapped on the roof of a skyscraper and it was burning. Like there's a video on the link that we'll add, and it shows you if the wind had changed, there is no way this guy could have been rescued, because the way that the fire smoke is billowing, if it had gone towards the guy, he wouldn't have been able to get out, because the crane operator wouldn't have been able to see him actually get into the device. And it was kind of tricky. Like it looks like he should have gotten in multiple times, but there was high winds and lots of flames that were kind of interacting with the cage as he was trying to get onto the roof. And apparently the fire had a lot of chemicals in it. So if the smoke had even gone to him, he would have just had a horrible time. So
that sounds awful.
Was super crazy. Yeah, super awful. So this crane operator saved this guy's life. And the only reason he even noticed the guy, because he's not that big, but he like got his coat and started fanning it out for people to notice that he was there. So,
wow. Well, I'm glad the guy got saved, but that sounds like a horror story to me, because I hate heights and fire would be awful. So
yes, but he saved a man.
Yay for that crane operator guy. All right, our next thing we wanted to do was talk about how we decorated for Christmas. So we're going to do a segment called Decorating with Moms. So Kindy, what do you guys do to decorate for Christmas? I mean, I guess you kind of talked about your one picture already and how you put fairy lights on it, but what else did you do?
Yeah. We're kind of simplistic. We don't have a whole lot of stuff around the house. It's mostly our stocking. And then I didn't really get a whole lot of stuff out, because I have like these little snowmen that you set on stuff. And then I have this like geese family that have like Christmas ornaments around their neck that you kind of can set out. And so things like that.
Where did you guys put your stockings?
We put them in the corner where we have curved kitty shell that we haven't taken down yet. And so I just set them on there and it actually works. They're kind of in my way right now, but that's where we're at, where they sit on like this curved shelf.
The cats can play on. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they can't get to it now, because we had a cat tree that would allow them to then get up onto these shelves, because they're pretty high.
Oh, okay.
But right now my desk is in that spot because we kicked the cats out. So
right.
Yeah, we got rid of our fireplace where our stockings normally would go. So we just have them on a shelf. I'd stick them somewhere else, but past couple of years we've had little kids that just really love pulling things down, which is so weird. So I've had to put them high. I don't know where else I put them, but yeah. And then just our tree. I think I asked Matt last year to take it down, and he got as far as taking ornaments off. And then he just moved the whole tree with lights and everything downstairs. So we might even do that this year, where we just move the tree, and that's it. It's so small. Like, it's not a tall tree at all. It's one that we had when we first got married, our second Christmas, because I'm a huge fan of buying decorations after the holiday so it doesn't cost so much.
Yeah. No, that's great. So did you guys put anything outside?
Yeah. So every year except this year, 3 years ago, I started to have Anders help me decorate a tree, because I don't want to put lights on the house, because I don't want to do it. I don't want to make Matt do it. So me and Anders would cut out a tree shape out of cardboard and then glue green construction paper on it, and then make decorations and glue those on it. And then we stick it outside and wrap lights around it. So we haven't done it this year. I don't know if we're going to do it this year. I'm not up for it, but we'll see if he wants to do it.
Right.
And then we just spray paint them like with clear stuff, so they're kind of more durable outside. I want to like put a stake and put them out in the grass, but I haven't gotten to that point. Mm-hmm. What about you guys? What do you do for decorations?
Well, we put up our tree, and I'm pretty much in charge of all the inside stuff, and Kyle's in charge of all the lights. Mm-hmm. And then the boys help where needed. So what I do is I put up we have, a couple things that sit around the house, little knickknacks and stuff. Like we got this Venetian glass Christmas tree in Italy. It's about 8 inches tall, and it's like stretched glass, and it looks like a little pine tree. And then they attached at the end of all the branches, they kind of looped it around the glass up and around, so it formed a little circle. Mm-hmm. And then they put little clips through those circles and then made little glass ornaments. So it has all these tinkling ornaments all over it. And oh man, I love it so much. And the boys are finally old enough. Well, there was a little while where once Lorenzo was old enough, I started putting it out, but then we had Clark, and so then I didn't put it out again. And now I can put it out. Kyle's like, I'm the one that you shouldn't put it out for. I always knock it over, and it's glass. So
yeah.
Anyway, so I love that. I got to put that out, and then Kyle put lights up on the front of our house, which they look so good. Like, it looks so good.
Yeah.
And I like the multicolored lights because it reminds me of gumdrops, and gumdrops remind me of Christmas. And so we have the colorful lights outside our house and on our tree. And then I always put out like themed dish towels. I know that's weird, but I have Christmas dish towels that I wrap all the ornaments in. And then when it's time to pull all the ornaments out come all the dish towels, because they're wrapped all around these glass ornaments. And so then we use the dish towels. We hung up our stockings on our stair rail, and it looks pretty neat. I go downstairs and I feel all festive. We didn't really decorate upstairs, but we aren't really upstairs except to sleep, or to play sometimes. And it's all festive, and I love it. We aren't really elaborate. Our next door neighbors that decorated really a lot for Halloween decorated really a lot for Christmas too. And we have our Christmas lights and our wreath outside. That's nice. It. And then Kyle found our CD player finally. It was packed in our tool chest. I couldn't find it. I was like, Maybe we left it at our old house.
Yeah.
But 2 days ago, he came out of the garage. He's like, I found it. It was in the tool chest. So we've been playing Christmas music, and it just feels like Christmas.
That's awesome. I was going to ask, with the new house that you're in, does it feel like you have less ornaments than you have had in the past, even though it's the same amount?
Because our house is bigger?
Yeah.
It feels like we have less. It feels like we could do a whole lot more decorating, but I don't like having tons of stuff stored away. So
yes. Yeah.
I'm fine with what we have. If we get, one thing every year to kind of add to it, and eventually I have another box of Christmas stuff. Because right now we have a tree box, a light box, and then a decorations box. We have 3 boxes that hold our Christmas stuff.
Dang.
That's it. And so I like that. I don't mind if we got like a 4th and a 5th box. But I mean, I think eventually I'll get a bigger tree, because the one we got a very narrow tree because we're in lots of little houses. So it's tall, but it's very narrow. It has like a circumference of a bike tire.
Oh, okay.
But then it's 9 feet tall. So it's very narrow, but very tall. So
super tall.
So when it wears out, we'll buy a fatter one.
Yeah, same. We'll probably have that tree for a few years before we retire it. I don't know at what point that will be, because there's times I've had to like readjust like the part that goes into the tree because the branches are like too droopy or not droopy enough, or I don't know. They just do really weird things when I pull them out and put them away, and so it's a lot of fun adjusting. But
that's my least favorite part, and it takes me because after I put it in the box, and then when you pull it out, you have to fluff it. You have to fluff your tree, essentially. And so it takes, 30 minutes to fluff a tree. Yeah.
Oh, man, when it's already out and preset, there's fluffing that needs to be done, but it's not as tedious.
Yes, it's very minimal fluffing.
Because I actually had a sheet draped over it so that it wouldn't get dusty or anything.
Nice. Well, listeners, tell us how you decorate for Christmas if you want on our Facebook page. All right, so now we have our main segment, which we are going to be talking about an unlikely match. So spoilers for that. We have a summary, which is kind of long-winded. I'll try to chop it down. We'll talk about what we liked about it and what we didn't like about it. If it gave us anything to think about, a deep thought or an idea, maybe the theme of it. And then we're going to rate it 0 out of 5 stars. Not 0 out of 5. 0 to 5 out of 5 stars. And then what we would give it. And then if it was mom approved, who would we not let read the book? So, our summary. The once penniless Nicholas Pritchard has inherited his ancestral home in Wales, ideal for a house party, which he invites the lovely Miss Castleton and her family to visit in order to woo her. Unbeknownst to him, there is a ghost living in the house. Her name is Gwen, and she has lived and died a mysterious death there in the castle, and despite centuries as the reigning force within her ancient residence, nothing prepares her for the charm and unexpected appeal of Nicholas. A deep and abiding affection grows between the two of them, and they have to figure out how they are going to be together. So there you go. What were some things you liked about this book, Kindy?
I loved how when he is roaming the halls of his new house and he finds Gwen's bedroom and the reverence he has and feels for it. Like, to him, it's like a very special sanctuary. And coincidentally, it is for Gwen. Like, for her, that is her safe place. She's like, all the owners can have the run of the house in other places, but like her room is her sanctuary. And like, it's almost as if the author portrays that through Nicholas's first discovery of the room.
I liked how Nicholas kind of saw himself as this guy, because he was poor and he had to kind of live off of others good, their welfare toward him, essentially. He kind of got, as a kid, he got shipped around from relatives to relatives. And as he aged, he had to kind of just get invited places in order to be able to eat. And so he inherits this home and the estate, and now is kind of flush with money. And it doesn't go to his head ever. He still is this humble guy who is kind of happy that now he's in this situation that he can propose to this girl that he had his eye on, but that her parents wouldn't even give him the time of day because he was poor. And I kind of like that he was just this humble guy still, even though he became wealthy.
Yeah. I'm in awe of authors and their ability to write different characters, their personalities, what goes, and like how that they do it so well that you know the character enough. Like, there's a show that I watched where the character, I think it's the end of like the second or third season, does something totally out of character of her, like of who she is, and it's off-putting. It's so off-putting. It was like the end of the season, they were trying to do it to pull you in to maybe hopefully we'll have another season. It wasn't that popular, and so it didn't do very well. But the way she writes her characters is amazing. I love it, and I love her books, and I love how she writes Nicholas. He's very lighthearted. He's, like you said, he's jovial. He's good-natured. He's down to earth. He has an instant love for his housekeeper, who just tells him how it is, and he loves that. That's one thing I love about Sarah M. Eden, is she's really good at her characters and the character development and like how they progress in the story. And I really loved, and I mean, just as you get to know Nicholas, you just he's endearing.
I like how you mentioned the housekeeper. And mind you, she's mentioned at the beginning of the book and then a teensy bit throughout, so you don't actually hear about her much. But she's still there and you still feel her presence. And I appreciated that too about Sarah M. Eden and the way she writes. Is the characters are still there even though the dialogue isn't.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go to what you were saying about how characters, the way she writes them, and how she can write so many different characters. It kind of reminds me of, because we watch movies a lot. I kind of relate the way that authors can write tons of different characters is the same way that actors can play tons of different roles and be such different people. And so I think that that's just a skill as an author, that you can just create this person, and whether they relate it to somebody they know or somebody they've just imagined, it's just an amazing skill, and it's really cool.
It is. It's really cool. One that I'll never have, and I'm okay with that. I enjoy other people's talents.
Me too.
What's something else you liked?
As this story went along, it kept me guessing at how things were going to resolve.
Oh, okay.
Because when I watch kind of mysterious movies or read mysterious books, I kind of like to be like, okay, this is how it's going to happen, to see if I'm right in the end.
Oh, yeah.
I like to make predictions, right? And so I would go along and I'd be reading and I'd be like, oh, this is how it's going to end. And then, another chapter later, I'm like, oh, nope, this is how it's going to end. And I liked that about this book, because it kept me trying to guess about how things were going to work out.
Yeah. I love how the characters, Nicholas and Gwen, understood each other. Like, Gwen has been a ghost for 400 years. And so she's been very lonely because of the individuals that have lived at the house. They're mostly scared of her most of the time, but she didn't get along as well with other owners of the home. She either had to strong arm them or scare them to get them to do what she wanted, which was basically just get her room to how she wanted it, and then was her main goal. But just how her and Nicholas interact with each other, because at the start, apparently Gwen shows herself pretty quickly to the new owner of the estate. She didn't with Nicholas. And then she is very demanding and wants things a certain way, but she didn't make that known because she never introduced herself or like, hey, this is me. And so Nicholas doesn't even think she's real until there's like some stirring up at a party. And then he's like, all right, this is happening. And everybody like just kind of accepted that this ghost is at this house. I thought that was a little weird. I was like, that's odd. But as Gwen and Nicholas get to know each other, I just love, and Sarah Eden does this a lot, where she has the characters relate really well to each other, which makes them a better match. Like there's an understanding and kind of like an awe that they have for each other. And I just love that. I just love that.
Mm-hmm. So I've read almost all of Sarah M. Eden's Regency books. Mm-hmm. And this one I picked up and I read what it was about. And I was like, nope, not interested, right? And then when we decided we were going to read a book, I was like, oh, I should pick one that I haven't read before. And I was like, okay, I haven't read that one. And so that Kindy and I would both of us would be going at it fresh. And
you were right not to read it.
I was right not to read it. Because it's about a ghost and a guy falling in love. I just have a hard time swallowing it, Kindy.
Yeah.
I'm going to fall in love with the ghost, and the ghost is going to fall in love with the dude. Like, what is this? Yeah. Oh my gosh. There were so many times as I was reading this book that I had to stop and just not read it, because I was
like, no.
Oh my gosh, this is not happening.
Yeah. I think the reason why I could get around it was because I mean, there's still parts where I'm like, no. But the fact that it was more, she didn't actually get murdered. She just was reserved in this state for like magical purposes to keep this castle in place. I don't know, but you don't find that out till the end. Well, there was actually one part that I wish was a little more well developed, where there was like conversations that kind of happen at some point, you don't really know, but they're like at this understanding of each other, Gwen and Nicholas. And so she goes to seek Nicholas out. I can't remember why. I think it's to get Mr. Castleton off her back, because he's like extremely fascinated with this ghost.
She walks through walls.
Yeah.
So he's always trying to see her walk through walls.
Yeah, he is super fascinated. And so I think she goes to Nicholas to, this is like an internal thought that she has. She goes to Nicholas to talk to him about it. And they stand up, like the gentleman thing to do is stand up when a woman enters. But I wish they had like leaned into that more, because they don't call her Miss Gwen. They just call her Gwen.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like still dismissive that she's a ghost, so they don't have to treat her with kindness, but at the same time, like, it's thrown in there. So I didn't like that half and half. I was like, you either have him full out treat her like a lady, or just treat her like a ghost like everybody else has. I didn't like that part where they gave her respect but not fully, because I
Follow
feel
the
like
rules sometimes.
there's yeah, where it's like, yeah, I thought that kind of bugged me.
So the tower is where Gwen was sacrificed to protect the castle from the attacking English 400 years ago. And she was sacrificed not in a death, but she was put, like Kindy said, in suspended animation with dark magic.
Yeah.
By her father and the local priest. And whenever Gwen got emotional, the tower would glow. And you're like, oh, okay, the tower's glowing. And then David, who's the local vicar now, who's a friend of Nicholas, he talks about how when he was a kid, he would come, to the grounds, and she had to scare him away from going to the tower, right?
Uh-huh.
And at the end of the book, the tower glows like super a lot because it's Halloween, right? Or they call it this Welsh
Something
thing that
different.
I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce.
Right.
But all this like magical stuff happens and the tower's super glowing. Okay. So if you're a teenager in this time, I know teenagers across time do crazy stuff. It isn't just a nowadays thing, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a teenager at any point during these 400 years and you saw on Halloween night, the night of the spirits, that this tower super glows a lot, you would totally try and break in, right?
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Nobody had ever attempted that ever in 400 years.
Or the fact that no one's heard of this place until he inherits it. How is that possible?
And how... Wait, I don't know what you mean. Here's of what place?
There's a ghost that you can interact with and talks back with you, and there aren't people just coming to see this ghost. The only thing I can think of, or at least rationalize away, is that it's improper to invite yourself over to someone's house. That's the only reason I'm like, okay.
Or the other people were very secretive about the ghost. Like, I don't want to tell people that I have a ghost in my house. Like, I don't know.
Because the whole town knew about it.
Yes, but not anybody beyond the town. So maybe they kept it to the town. Anyway, there's all these things where I'm like, this wouldn't have lasted 400 years. That nobody tried to break into that place. Oh, I get really cold when I go up the staircase, that it's hard to move. Breathe. Wrap myself in more blankets and try again next year. I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me. There wasn't enough there.
Well, it wasn't just the cold. It was the hard to breathe, like a weight. Like, to me, I felt like she was writing it as if there was like a weight that was weighing you down. And so it was really hard to get to the door. And so that was a big deterrent.
Okay. I still think that there would be kids that would be like, I dare you to touch the door. Okay. That somebody touched the door at the top of the glowing tower. Okay. Now let's do something else. And apparently it makes so that Gwen, the ghost, runs through her, replays that night every Halloween. And nobody noticed this before. Nobody noticed that Gwen the ghost talks to people that aren't there, or these other ghosts that you're seeing in the fog. Like,
To
nobody
be
noticed
fair,
this any time and told, like, David, who knows
well,
all the history of this stuff, is like, I don't know what happened to Gwen. Nobody took the time to
nobody
follow her
knows.
while she was
No,
reliving
because
this.
she makes it a point at the beginning of the story to say how coward and timid everybody is of her. So why would they hang
But
out with a ghost
why?
that scares them to death?
They don't even make her.
They don't
She's
want
never
to be
that
around
scary.
her.
She's never
But
that
she's a
scary.
ghost. She is a ghost.
And she
Emmeline.
makes stuff windy.
And she makes things windy. I'm sorry, but if you came in contact with the ghost, you would be scared too.
Okay.
Or you have the fortitude like Nicholas. So that is how they get away with them not knowing. The only reason is that Nicholas has fallen in love with her, and then this party, no one has like actually seen this until this party, but they all think it's a joke and funny, haha, so they laugh it off and nobody is curious and follows her.
Okay, so there were, tons of owners before Nicholas, and nobody's like, every year Gwen runs through this part of the house. That's a main part of the house.
How do you know that they were even in that part of the house? They would probably have avoided her. And maybe their paths never crossed.
Okay, if you were living in a house for 50 years, you wouldn't get a good relationship with the ghost that's there when you realize she's not actually that scary.
That's what she establishes at the beginning of the story.
She is not scary ever.
Okay, she's not scary, but Sarah M. Eden establishes at the beginning of the book that all the owners are terrified of her. She might not be scary, she's not intimidating, but they are afraid of her. So why would they go and
But then there's
out?
David, who's lived there his whole life, and he's not scared of her. So why?
Yeah, but
I'm just saying.
live there. He doesn't live there.
Yeah,
So
he doesn't
why
live
would
in the
he
house.
Camp
But
out.
all the other kids in the town, if you were an owner of the house and the kids in town could talk to the ghost, you're like, okay, she must not be that bad.
Yeah. Okay, how would you write that into the story?
She did. She talked about how the kids wanted to go play in the tower, and she had to be like, well, I got to be mean to kids and scare them so they'll stay away from the tower.
So how would you write into the story about the teenagers trying to go into the tower? How would you write that?
I don't know, but I'm just saying.
Exactly. That's not the point of the story.
Exactly, but you can't gloss over something because it doesn't fit in your story. You can't. Yeah. Because stuff like that would happen. People would try. She could be like, well, people have attempted to get into the tower, but they lock up frozen and the owners have had to drag them out of this tower. Or the owners have had to lock up the door so that people wouldn't try to enter. But the door isn't even locked, to the tower. It's not. You can just walk right in. Anyway, there were things that she could have done and just mentioned. It wouldn't even have to be that long-winded. It could be a paragraph about how previous owners had to take precautions because kids would dare each other on Halloween to come into the glowing tower. Anyway, I was just, there were so many
The mystical is not her strong suit.
No.
We'll just say that.
It is not.
I think she tried.
She tried, and it was, in my opinion, a fail. I couldn't handle this book, Kindy. The whole time I was like, gah! And I know she's going to put Nicholas with Gwen in the end. They're going to have to end up together somehow. And it doesn't make sense, because why would you fall in love with the ghost?
I was still sad when he proposed to Miss Castleton.
I was sad that he proposed to her, but I was like, go find love somewhere else. We aren't hitting it off. I'm going to go back to London next year and find somebody else. Well, I guess you're here, so I'll propose. That didn't make any sense.
Well, doesn't it have something to do with the culture back then, where if you are in like a pursuit
Yes.
relationship, like you can't just cut it off. Like the gentleman thing would be to follow through.
Follow through.
So if you have any,
but he didn't ever have to get it to that
he
point.
was doing.
Because he brought it up. He could have been like, I'm so glad that you visited. Thank you. And then they could have packed up and left. But instead, he's like, well, you're here and I invited you here. Do you want to get married, I guess? They're like, no.
Well, and that's one thing I've never understood about back then, and like how proper things are, because with him even inviting her to her home, I think the implication in itself is damaging enough, isn't it?
No, because her parents were there. There was another family there. Like there were other guests. It isn't damaging because you have all sorts of chaperones. It's just like, well, if they accept, that means that we're going to get married. Like, is that where the line is? Like, I invite this person to my house to stay this extended period of time. If they accept,
a whole
that
month,
means,
which is crazy.
Yeah, if they accept, that means we're going to get married. That would be like really like, I'm going to really think about inviting her to my house if her accepting coming here means I have to marry her.
Yeah, well, he did initially.
Yeah, that's what he wanted to do initially.
Why he wanted invited her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I liked it.
Good.
Should we talk about our stars and then deep thoughts?
Sure.
Since we're already like spilling the beans with the stars.
Yeah. I give this book a 0.
No, you can't, because you finished it.
There were times I wish I didn't finish this book. I wish I could have. I finished it for the podcast. That's why I finished it. I would not have finished it otherwise. If I was reading this for fun, I would have thrown this down after 2 chapters. Because I saw where it was going and I was like, no.
Yeah.
I object. Sorry, you go ahead. What did you give it?
No, you're good. A 3 or a 4, I think. I don't know if I probably would reread it, but not, because I do want to go back and like, she's got different stories of different families, but they kind of intertie with each other. And so I want to like go back to the beginning of where all of these stories started and read through those. A date timeline reading, if that makes sense. So like whichever were dated
the timeline
first.
order of the books. But I think this is a one-off book. But I don't think it talks about any of her other characters at all.
It doesn't. It definitely is a one-off book, but I liked it enough I would read it again.
Oh,
so
well, good. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah. Me too. I'm sorry you didn't.
Oh man,
I'm stuck. You could have stopped and been like, I couldn't finish it. It was so dumb.
I wanted to complain about it a lot. No.
Yeah, you can. What else do you want to complain about it?
Like, you could see all of her, like, the flaws in her writing, how you could predict things from, oh, well, David and Miss Castleton are hanging out a lot. That's where that's going to go. They're going to fall in love with each other. But even at first, like, where she just wouldn't even make eye contact with him because he was poor, or I don't know. And he made it sound like she went this direction where you almost thought that Miss Castleton was really snooty. And then she changed tactics like halfway through the book. And I was just like, what the heck? Like, you were going someplace else with this and then changed your mind and made her a nice person?
I didn't understand that. I didn't understand how she was so put off by the vicar and was like super disrespectful. But then at some point, like I don't know when it switched where she was all of a sudden fascinated with him, where it's like after the story is when you started to like
Yeah.
him, and like it was
He's the
weird.
good
That one was
storyteller. Ooh, I want to marry him.
right. Yeah, I thought that was weird too. I was like, what is happening? I even went back and reread that part because she dismisses him, and then after the story she's like, what was his intention? And oh my gosh, now I'm in love with him because
Because why? We
yeah,
don't
he's
know.
a good storyteller. Yeah, we don't know because it's so weird. And then they
That
just
was
start
weird.
talking with each other, and Nicholas is so wrapped up in Gwen. And yeah, that I thought that part was really weird.
I did like Mr. Castleton. Even
Oh,
though
you did? I
I
didn't
did.
like him. I
Because
thought he was
he's
so
like,
annoying.
he's obnoxious and
Yeah,
he loves that there's a ghost in the house. He is
yeah,
fascinated with Gwen. And so he's always like chasing her down. I didn't like him himself, but I really liked the way he was written. I really liked how Gwen and Nicholas kept trying to like put him off to leave Gwen alone. He's like, oh,
especially
if
measuring the
you
table.
really want her to show up at dinner, the table in the dining room has to be perfectly centered in the room. Like perfectly centered. Exactly. And so Mr.
Yeah.
Castleton runs off to the dining room to center that table so Gwen will come to dinner.
Yeah,
Oh, I thought that was awesome.
that was pretty clever. That was fun.
And so I liked
I
that
did
he
love
was
that.
in there because, you know, there are going to be people that if there was a ghost around that would be, ooh,
Fascinated.
let me see you try to pick up this feather. Can you pick up a feather? Because it's light? Like, I don't know. They didn't
Yeah,
write that in there, but, you know, there would be people that would want to see the cool stuff a ghost could do.
yeah, yeah. Especially since she was so personable and not scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I hated her dad. I didn't like her dad, and I
Oh,
didn't like how she tried to win his approval. It's like, give up. He's not worth it. Run away or something. I don't know. I don't know.
yeah. Yeah. He was a bad
Throwing up
guy.
that
He was a bad guy.
black flag before she even
Was
quote
dead.
unquote died.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was dirty.
Yeah.
I
I thought it was
what
going to
did
be
you
worse. I
think had
thought she was going to
happened?
be like
Yeah, same
raped in
here.
the tower or something. And I was like, oh no.
I thought her dad was going to murder her. I'm glad I didn't go to yours, but I thought like either the priest or her dad
Yeah.
or both murdered her.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. And then when it was, I was like, oh, this is bad, but it's not that bad. She's still kind of alive.
Yeah. Kind of.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
And then she magically woke up and was the right age and everything worked out. And I was just like, bleh. Yeah. Okay, I'm done
Yeah.
complaining.
No, you're good.
Okay, so deep thought or idea?
I think it was just interesting on how other people's reaction to the mystical is. Like some people are completely terrified, some people take it in strides, and some people are completely fascinated. Like you have ghost hunters and you have people who are fascinated with thrillers, or you have people like me that could care less about scary movies because I don't want that gross feeling that you get when you're watching something so horrific. Like it's just not fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't really have anything past that of just noticing how she wrote the difference. Like David and his friend Griffith. Yeah, it's Griffith.
Oh,
Griffith
okay.
Davis. But he seemed intrigued, but mostly indifferent. But he also seems like a pretty quiet friend, which I like.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I didn't have any like really deep thoughts about this one. This one's kind of, I don't know, just talking about it with you, it does feel like she's trying something new and it didn't get fully flushed out.
Yeah.
Like there were things that could have been touched on. I enjoyed it just because I love a good love story and I love how they get together in the end, no matter how they get there. But it sounds like there are standards that you have that
Apparently, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And see, what's funny is there is a modern-ish version kind of this. It's called
Just Like Heaven.
Just Like Heaven, and it has Reese Witherspoon and Mark Ruffalo in it. And it's so cute, and I love it. She's a ghost.
So cute.
He's a guy. They fall in love, and she feels like it's essentially this story. And I love that movie. I could not handle this book. I don't know. So I think the theme of this book is that love could be anywhere, and even in unexpected places. Like, it isn't necessarily always what you think it's going to be. Because Nicholas, he had this girl in mind that he was going to marry. And after a while, he was like, you know what? I have fallen in love with this really unexpected person that I wasn't ready for in my life, but I am in love with her. And even though it was unconventional, let's put it that way, unconventional, that he was willing to do it, to make that leap and figure out, after he found her body, I guess, that he was willing to save her if he could.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like most of her books are perspective based, and this one was totally different. It was more circumstantial. Like, he didn't have the funds to even provide to have a wife, and then he inherited this house, and then he had a wife in mind, but then the more he got to know her, the more he's like, I don't know if this is a good fit. And he was more drawn to Gwen, who to me was like more stoic, or at least that was the intent. But then he's like, but there's no life with her. She's a ghost. So then he's like, I guess she's the one that I know, and so I'll just go with her.
I'll just settle, even though I don't feel it anymore. I was like, how is this ever going to be happy?
It's not. That's why he's like, yeah, I can't do this.
But he was going to follow through, because that's the gentlemanly thing to do. And I was just like, oh my gosh, how many times, like, if that was really a thing, how many times were there just super unhappy marriages?
Probably a ton.
Ugh, that would be awful.
I don't know. That would be super awful.
Okay, Mom approved. Who would we recommend this book to?
Well, you wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
Nobody. I love Sarah M. Eden, and I would say read her books, but do not read this one, my friends.
Yeah. This would not be a good starter, so probably nobody. Because I love that because the one that you introduced me to first, which I'm grateful you did, because I loved it. Like, I already want to read it again. But yeah, Seeking Persephone. Start with that one. If you're going to start with the Sarah M. Eden one, don't start with this one. Start with Seeking Persephone.
And then if you like a lot of her books and you want to read a stupid one, you can read this one. No, Kindy liked it, so there you go.
Yeah.
Kindy liked this.
If our likes align, then there you go. If your likes align with Emmeline, then there you go.
Yep.
You'll know where to go.
All right. Our next episode, we are going to be reading Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. So we're going to be discussing that book next week.
I keep calling it Elantris.
Maybe that's how it's pronounced. I always just
why.
call it Elantris.
Elantris.
Because part of me learned how to talk in Oklahoma.
Elantris.
Elantris. All right. We would love to hear from you. If you ended up reading An Unlikely Match, let us know what you thought. Because I would love to hear others' opinions on this. Change my mind.
Yeah.
We post a question on our Facebook page. You can contact us there. You can reach out to us on our email, and the links to both of those are on our website, and they are listed in the show notes.
Help us grow. Tell others about us. Share something that you've learned or something you've discovered, like how Emmeline likes the movie concept of this book, but not the book itself. And we would like to thank Red Productions for the music and Jonica for the logo. And we would like to thank our listeners. We appreciate ya.
Toodle pip.
Toodle pip. I love that.
All right. So Clark's his top 2 front teeth are loose. Okay?
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh, Clark, you should lose those both before Christmas, and then you can sing the song, All I Want for Christmas is My 2 Front Teeth. And he looked at me and he was like, no. He thought that's what I was like, you have to lose those, so the only thing you're going to get for Christmas is your 2 front teeth. So then today, he was like, Mama, I'm going to wait until January to pull my teeth out.